In today's episode of Pros versus AMs, we're talking about lag. Lag is one of those topics that gives a lot of golfers a lot of fits. We see those great players every week on TV, right? They stand over a shot, they've got a 7-iron to a tuck pin, and they hit these highly compressed, just rocketed, solid iron shots to the flag. And then we go out the next week and try to emulate those same moves, and it just doesn't quite work out the same way. There are key elements that they do in their swings that the rest of us aren't doing. Now, we're going to take a look at those same great golfers, some of the best in the world. We're going to share with you their 3D data and show you exactly what it is that they are doing to create lag. Some of these are going to be brand new to you, I promise you. Now, the cool part is you don't have to be on their same level to create lag. You don't have to be fit. You don't have to be young. You don't have to be hyper flexible to do this. We're going to show you the two key elements that you can absolutely incorporate into your golf swing to help you create more lag so you can get those highly compressed, solid iron shots the next time you step out on the golf course. We can't really have a in-depth downswing discussion without first introducing the element of time, because once that club changes direction, once it starts to downswing until it reaches the golf ball, we have a very small window of time. And that's really one of the big reasons why we chose two golfers that you're looking at right now. Our pro is in blue, our amateur is red, and they represent each classification of golfer, each group of golfers very well with regards to what we're going to show you in this video. And one of the coolest things about it is it takes them both exactly 0.23 seconds from the top of their swing to impact. And they're also very equally sized, very similar size. They have the same amount of rotation in the backswing. They have very similar tops of the backswing, lengths of swing, and the same club head speed. These two golfers are very similarly matched up, and they represent each classification. The pro represents what we see in pro swings. The amateur represents what we see over and over again in amateur swings. And I think they're going to help really bring home the point of how to successfully and powerfully create lag in your golf swing. So we really want to focus in on two elements as far as it goes into creating lag. And you're looking at both golfers here from the face on, and the angles you're seeing are what a lot of people consider the lag angle. It's that lead arm to shaft angle. It's really easy to see here from the face on view. Now, that can be deceptive in a lot of ways because this angle really depends on how the golfer flexes that lead wrist or extends that lead wrist. But the really important point we want to focus on in this video, we call this true lag, is right here at this shaft parallel spot in the golf swing. Right? This is really the beginning of the delivery phase. In both of these golfers' cases, they are 4/100ths of a second away from impact. So this is where we want to really designate lag, and we'll call this useful lag. It's where the hands at this location in the golf swing. And as you can see here from our pro and our amateur, the hands are in quite a bit different location relative to that trail thigh, their right thigh. And that's really the point to be made here is do you have the club, do you have the hands, do you have the butt of the club positioned to where at the start of the delivery phase, can you deliver the club head solidly into the ball? Can you deliver it with the right amount of loft control, club face control, and then can you transfer that speed to ball speed? Because both of these golfers have the exact same club head speed, but they have much different ball speeds, and you're going to see why. It's also worth noting that our amateur golfer here is not a high handicap golfer. He's a single digit golfer. So this really covers the gamut and really encompasses what we see so often with the amateur swings. So this is lag angle, right? That angle is lag angle, but it can be very deceiving because as we'll look here in a second from down the line, these angles can be created quite differently. But what we're really interested in seeing is where's the golfer at this delivery phase, and then where are they at from there coming into the ball, because lag isn't something that's held. We can see both of the angles right here are really going to start to increase, right? No golfer holds that angle. They're all increasing it, and they actually arrive to impact in not too dissimilar spots, but they look drastically different and they produce very different ball flights. So the first element that we want to look at as far as creating lag goes, useful lag, is club face on the downswing. And we can see right here that each of these golfers despite being very similarly length backswing, have much different lead wrist angles and much different club faces from this down the line view. Now, having a cupped left wrist like we see our amateur versus a flat left wrist like we see our pro, both of those wrist angles are in the Hall of Fame, so those are not the issue necessarily. It's how those wrist angles combined with the club face angles really either make or break your ability to generate lag in your downswing. And as we start to scroll these golfers through, we're going to see very different club face angles. Both golfers actually increase the cupping in their left wrist. So our pro went from a flat left wrist to a cupped left wrist, but you can see the big difference in face angle, and that's the important part. If you want to create lag in your golf swing, you have got to have a stronger club face angle. You cannot have an open club face coming down. So a really good spot to look at is right when the club head is kind of laying on the golfer's back. So when you videotaping your swing from down the line, this is a good indication of just your potential to generate club head speed, not only speed, but club head lag. It's where is the club face at relative, we'll call it to vertical, when your club head is right here on your back. And you can see much more open by the amateur, much more toe up, much more vertical from our pro. He has already started to square the face right out of the top. Our amateur now, if you've ever hit a shank, and just about anybody playing has, what you've done is lagged the hosel. You've carried the shaft right into the golf ball rather than the sweet spot. And that's a perfect example of the beginnings of that shot. That nasty little shot is right here on our right in our amateur swing. And as we continue to scroll through, now we see the pro is really starting to going from slightly cupped to starting to flatten out his wrist. And as we get to this, again, this our checkpoint here, this hand's opposite the front leg, or should be opposite the front leg, we can see much different club faces. Now is where wrist angles start to play a big role. We still see a lot of cup from our amateur that's coinciding with the weak club face, and we see a flat to slightly bowed left wrist with our pro. You can see a much stronger club face. And that's going to carry on out into how these golfers deliver the ball differently coming into impact. So the number one, or I won't say number one, I'll say our first element that we're going to look at is club face angle. How strong or how weak is your club face coming out of the top of the swing to right here at shaft parallel? If you want to create more lag in your swing, this needs to be on the stronger side. We don't want it on the weak side, especially not with a cupped left wrist. Now the second element we're going to look at is called lead arm abduction angle. And you can see it here from this graphical representation, just a bird's eye view looking down on the golfer. It's how much the golfer moves his left arm across his chest towards his right shoulder, and then how much does he move it from his right shoulder back to where you see it here, or in some cases more than you see it here. And we're looking at both golfers at address, their lead arm abduction angle at address. And what you're going to see from each one is a 90 from the pro, a 93 from the amateur. Now, these numbers are just the starting number. They're not very important at all. We all have different size frames. We have different anatomy. And if your shoulders are wider and your arms are shorter, you're going to have a different number than these guys. So this number is not the important number. It's what happens after this setup number that really makes the difference. And that's really where we want to focus at in this video. So as we see, we're going to go from address to the top of the backswing, right here. And we're going to see a drastic difference between what so many amateurs do, the overwhelming majority of amateurs do, compared to what the overwhelming majority of professionals do. And if there's any time you see an amateur swing, an element of an amateur swing that is 2.5 times different than a pro swing, that's typically a big red flag, and this is no exception. We can see how the pro has moved from his setup angle to the top of his swing. It's only moved his left arm across his body 18 degrees compared to 43 degrees with the amateur. Now, we go back into that time element. Everything takes time to do. And we like to say all the time that pros have much less work to do than amateurs, especially in the downswing. And you're seeing that right here. The amateur has moved his left arm over twice as much across his body than the pro. he's created over twice as much work to do in that tiny 2.3 second window in the downswing. And that's a big issue because the downswing is not a consistent 0.23 seconds, it's an accelerating 0.23 seconds. Now if we look to these golfers as they go from the top of the golf swing down to that magic spot when that shaft is parallel, beginning of the delivery phase, we're going to see a big difference here. So the white arm indicates where they currently are. The faintest of those arms was the address position. The next, red for the amateur, blue for the pro, is where they were at the top of the swing. And now again, the white arm is where they currently are. You can see that the pro has his lead arm now, well before impact, ahead of where it was at address. That's how he's able to get his hands, both his right and left hand, in front of that lead thigh in that classic lag look that you see with so many professional golfers. And our amateur, again, because he was 43 degrees across his body at the top, he's actually moved more than the professional. He's worked harder and accomplished it, but he's still well short of where he was at address. And that's why you see the arm so far behind that lead leg, or excuse me, that trail leg at this delivery stage. And he's already dumping all of those lag angles that he tried to create at the top with that cup left wrist. He's having to dump these angles just to get the club on the ball. And this lead arm abduction angle is a big deal for a lot of things in the golf swing, but it certainly is a huge factor with your ability to create lag, to create useful lag that you can use to improve your golf shots. And just to drive the point home, we want to look at, we're going to throw some more pros in here just so you can see the overall pattern and how little they move compared to how little work they do compared to what so many amateurs are doing. It's actually a much simpler swing, and there's no physical gift that allows them to do this, right? This isn't something that takes a special physical ability to do. It's just their understanding, a lot of it innately, of how to move that lead arm across their chest. And we can see so many of us who are less gifted in some cases, less in shape, less flexible, are trying to do, in some cases, twice as much work in the same amount of time frame. That's not a winning recipe. So let's take a look at some other pros and see how they compare. So here's the next pro. We'll call him Pro 2. Very similar. He's got the white arm, his current arm, ahead of where he was at address, and his top of the backswing blue arm did not move that much at all across his chest at the top of the swing. Again, you can see the stark difference here. Let's look on to another one. Pro 3, very similar numbers as our first pro. A little bit different look from the front view. He's got his left arm in front of his thigh, not quite so much his right arm, but still in a lag position. Still very much use this lead arm abduction angle very well. Pro 4, again, doesn't move his left arm across his body that much at all, but really moves that left arm back forward off the chest in the downswing. And again, very strong position here. And you can actually see he has less. This is why just looking at that lag angle, that lead arm to shaft angle, can be so misleading, because he has less angle retained, but he's in a much, much stronger position where his hands are relative to his body to deliver the club head. Now let's look at Pro 5. We can see the same thing, 21 degrees of movement from the top to this spot in the downswing, very strong position. Then our final pro, number 6 here, again, another 21 degree. All of these guys have moved that arm farther than they were at setup, and we can see that. We can show up 50 amateurs, and they're all going to look very similar to our amateur here, and we can put up 50 more pros, and they're all going to be very similar to what we've shown you now. That's the big difference. The club face control and this lead arm abduction angle, how much it moves or how little you move, depending on how you want to look at it, is really what determines your ability to create lag or your inability to create lag. And then here are those 6 pros all together, and these are elite ball strikers, elite golfers. These guys have combined for over, I think it's 35 wins and over $160 million won on tour. So these guys are not journeymen. These are some of the elite ball strikers in the world, and you can see how similar they all move, and there is definitely the same sequence of movement with regard to this lead arm abduction angle. And I can promise you, if we showed you from down the line, they would all have stronger club faces, and those two factors alone are really what allows you to generate lag. I want to mention too that we've created a training program, a step-by-step training program, especially for this lead arm abduction angle, because it has so many influences on the golf swing in general. It's called the Flight Fix. It's inside of our AMG All Access membership. It'll take you through each phase of the golf swing, show you the drills that you need to work on to make this an asset in your swing rather than a liability. And it's going to show you how to generate faster ball speed, more compression, and more solid golf shots. There's so much in it that we can't put it out on YouTube, but it's in our membership. We'll put a link in the description so you can give that a try. If you need more lag or need more compression on your golf shots, you'll definitely want to take a look at that.
Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did enjoy it, go ahead and give it a like. Also, if you have any questions about today's video, or you have an idea of a video that you want us to shoot, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. We read every single comment. We also respond to the comments. So again, leave us a comment if you have any questions or there's anything you'd like to see. Now, if you haven't already, click the subscribe button. We have videos coming out every single week, and we don't want you to miss one. So by clicking subscribe, that ensures you're notified right away when a new video comes out. And hey, if you want to add instant distance to your drive, and we all do, everybody wants more distance, go ahead and click the link in the pinned comment below. You're going to see a link. Click on it. It's going to take you to a page. You're going to enter your name and email address. We're going to send you an email where you're going to get access to instant distance, which is a video training that we put out. We know it's going to help you. We know we're going to see you farther down the fairway.